Okay, so thank you so much and welcome to this second session in our webinar series, 5 Lessons Learned in a COVID Classroom. Today we're going to be focusing on science and in particular our core science program for grades K-12 called Inspire Science. The session is going to be led by our two excellent speakers and McGraw Hill team members, DJ West and Jason Marshall. First of all, I'll just introduce myself. I am Parveen Bambra. I am the marketing executive for schools in the UK and Europe. I'm really excited to have you here today for this session. I think there's going to be lots of key learnings throughout from DJ and Jason. So what I'll do now is I'll just take you through some quick housekeeping bits, just to let you know if you're having any trouble with your Zoom connection at the moment, if you've got any sort of low bandwidth, just turn off anything in the background that may be causing a little bit of a disruption there, like some streaming, like Netflix, maybe someone in the house is watching Netflix. We will be covering questions towards the end of the session. So I just dropped a message in the chat. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask, feel free to drop it in the Q&A or the chat box and we'll come to it towards the end. This session is being recorded, so we will share it with you and all the attendees afterwards via an email. And just to let you know where the functions are for you you can see on the screen there, you've got the chat box, you've got the Q&A, if you haven't seen it already. So what I will do now is I will stop sharing and I will pass on to DJ to get us started.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Parveen, just make sure, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Excellent.
So this is going to be a fun session today, in my opinion, because one of the things we're looking at is lessons learned from a COVID classroom. And then the biggest thing about this is notice the subtitle that we don't want to forget. So we're going to walk through this and look at 5 specific lessons. And it would help if I started at the beginning. Hang on just a second. There we go. There we go. Okay. And one of the reasons that I put this image up here is if you look at the picture, back to school this year, the end of school last year, and unfortunately, we're still in a kind of unknown situation for coming back to school after this term ends, and looking and thinking, what will that be like? So school shopping for our students was a little bit different this year. And what we've experienced really is unprecedented times in education in the world. We all know that. But the biggest thing about this is we know that education is one of the slowest institutions to actually change. So while we look at businesses, while we look at industry and we see the changes they've made in technology and the way that even you think about the way we do shopping now and the way that's changed, even over the last 5 years, and even with COVID in the last year, how immediately restaurants went to Grubhub and DoorDash and Uber Eats. And I'm sure that around Europe, it's a whole series of different services, but they immediately adapted to the change. And this is one of the few times in education we've had to do the same kind of adaptation. And with that, if you think about it, the use of Zoom or other screencasting programs that we use, whether it be Teams or Skype or Google Hangouts or whatever program, we as teachers had to make shifts in not only what we taught, how we taught it, how much we taught, and then the way that we had our students interact around that content. So the biggest thing in that is we actually learned a lot of lessons, and we've been forced to institute the kind of change that I'm talking about. Now, one of the things I want you to realize, though, is that we as human beings have a tendency that once the impetus for change is done, is to revert back directly to what we were doing before. So we don't want to do that. So starting out in looking at these 5 lessons, I want to make sure that we're using the same vocabulary in the same way. Some of these are words we didn't use before COVID that are a regular part of our vocabulary now. But the other thing I want to do is I'm going to change them a little bit for this presentation. So just really quickly, if you think about synchronous learning, that is any time we are live with a class or a small group of students. So the instructor and the students are together. So it could be one-to-one, could be 3 students, 5 students, it could be your whole class. But if you think about it, anytime we're face-to-face, that's what we mean by synchronous. So it could be virtual, could be live in a classroom, okay? Asynchronous learning is learning that happens without the teacher. Now, it doesn't mean it's not live. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that the students aren't interacting with each other. It could be a collaborative small group of students, could be independent work the students are doing. The one thing I want to do in this presentation today, though, is I want to use the word asynchronous a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is that asynchronous is the work a student does in a group or independently that directly relates to what they're doing in the synchronous learning or the current lessons they're studying. So that asynchronous part for what we're talking about today is work that directly relates to the topic that we're working with. And I'll tell you why as we go through this, we're going to do that. But look at the next one, that's independent learning. Independent learning is a type of asynchronous learning. Teacher's not there, students doing it on their own. But what I'd like to do for this session is think about independent learning as learning that happens that may not be directly connected to the topic the teacher is working on at that time, but also work that is specifically personalized for that individual student. So we all know this. We've a new term, not on my vocabulary list here. The word that we've heard is learning loss. And we know that over the last year, because of the virtual, that students, there are chunks of learning they have not received. There's a lot of concern about what's going to happen next year as we go into grade level content about ideas that students have missed. Well, learning loss actually is not new. If you think about all of the students in your classroom, whether that's 25 or 30 or 35, those students are all on a different level in their learning journey on the topic that you're teaching at the present time. So we're talking about science. Every one of your students is at a different place in their science journey. Some of them are missing precursor concepts. Let's say that you have students in the middle years in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. Some of those students in 8th grade are missing topics they should have picked up in 2nd or 3rd grade. Some in 4th or 5th grade. Some need to academically move ahead beyond the work that they're doing in the current grade level. Independent learning allows us then to meet the needs of that individual student. So synchronous, we're together. Asynchronous, we're working on topics that directly connect what we're doing together. And then independent learning is personalized work for the student that could relate directly to the topic today, but may not relate at all to the topic we're doing today, but is allowing the student to have a personalized experience to either recover ideas, reinforce ideas, or move forward in their learning. The last two are familiar to you, remote or distance learning, actually two different terms. Remote typically is the term we use when you're doing virtually at home, when we're not meant to do that, when normally those students would be a classroom. And then distance learning, we're seeing more of that happening. Distance learning is where students are doing that, but it's the prescribed course. That's what they do. They don't come into school. In the US, where we've had schools actually go back in person, we have students that have opted for distance learning. So they are not going to be in the classroom. They're doing everything virtual. And then the last one is hybrid, where we have a mix of these. So think about those terms. The only change we're making here is asynchronous is connected to the learning going on in the classroom. Independent may or may not be. So here are the 5 lessons I'm going to throw out. Now, these are not an exhaustive list. We could probably put 15 or 20 or 100 more down here of little things that we've learned about how we want students to act. But these are 5 that I think we really need to hold on to. The first one is this: using diagnostic assessment wisely. Now, here's why I say that. We have a lot of people in the US that are really using diagnostic assessment, and they're totally focused on what's been missed and then looking at ways to use that. So when we think about diagnostic assessment, one of the things that Jason will mention when he's talking about our specific and science, Inspire Science program is for every grouping of studies. So we have it broken down by module. Every module of study there's actually a pre-test or a diagnostic test. Now that pre-test looks at ideas that the student should already have. It's not looking at have they mastered the current content you're getting ready to go into. It's looking at ideas they should have picked up in previous grade levels. Do they have that? Do they have the understanding of it? And are they ready to move ahead in their learning? So if you think about the use of diagnostic assessment, the one on the left is from a middle school program. The one on the right is actually out of the same one, but it's the virtual version of that. You're going to see that all the way through. But there are a variety of types of diagnostic assessment. So if you look at the ones we have the screen, there's some programs or some assessment systems that have a universal screener. It's something typically students do at the beginning of the year. So it actually assesses their learning cycle on the topic. So whether you're doing life science or biology, chemistry, physics, environmental science, it would look and see what topics compared to the grade level benchmarks or the grade level standards that students have already mastered or not mastered. A second one that all of us use regularly is classroom observation. When students are having discussion around topics, how does that discussion go? Do I see a flow in that? Do I see missing concepts? Do I see students that are lost? Qualitative data that we get from pieces like a diagnostic assessment that's mentioned below, or from lesson checks that we give, or lesson assessments, or end of topic assessments that we give. And then the last kind is a progress measure. And a progress measure is typically an assessment that's given at regular intervals that shows growth in the topic over time. So if I use a screener or a benchmark at the beginning of the year, that would then allow me to see how students are moving forward on this year's benchmark grade levels, but also on the previous ones that the screener or the diagnostic gave me emphasis on. Now, one thing I do want to mention in Inspire Science, the point of the diagnostic assessments that we give regularly, we call them pre-tests, is to see where they are with the precursor topics going into a specific unit of study. So here we're looking at cells and life. We want to see specifically ideas around that. It's not meant to be comprehensive. It's meant to be look at prerequisite content in science as they're working on it. Now, if you think about a diagnostic assessment, it does three things. First of all, it helps me gain understanding of the current situation of my class. Why is that important? Because if I'm getting ready to go into photosynthesis and I'm going to look at light stage and dark stage photosynthesis, but my students don't even have the basic understanding of how photosynthesis works on a general level, I may need to spend a little more time there at the beginning. But if they already have that, I can move right in more quickly. The second one, it's about a knowledge how to help the students improve. So if I know where each individual student is, I know how to support them. And then finally, what resources do I need to help my students? That allows me to take action. And the end result is a desired result of every teacher. It allows me to improve learning outcomes. So you can use a diagnostic assessment to do any of these things. I'm only going to point out a couple of these. Okay. The first one is to indicate where students are with their prior knowledge. What are they bringing in? The second one, assess learning that's occurred during a specific session. I want to see what you picked up, what I need to go back over. The main one, though, is number 3. It can help you as an instructor adjust the content and the activities to encourage more effective learning. And then it also shows students, if I use that I really want you to be successful. So a lot of things here that are available to it. So the biggest question, if you do diagnostic and you use it wisely, what do you do with it? Number 1, it can allow you to do some small group instruction, regardless of the grade level, even in these secondary grades. Okay, so that small group instruction, I have 5 students that are missing this precursor concept, while other students are working on a bell ring or a specific piece. I'm going to work with this group just to make sure I level set. Number 2, I can provide tutorial or independent work. In Inspire Science, one of the things that we've done is we have materials that actually can help a student go in and review, whether it's through adaptive learning, whether it's through some of the other pieces we built into the program. The third one, it provides adaptive solutions. I can use some of the adaptive solutions that are out there to support missing concepts or allow a student to drive ahead. Or if a student is really missing, even in science, I need to think about some intensive intervention because otherwise they don't have the foundation to be successful. So we said do the diagnostic. That leads to the second piece, which is one of the lessons we've learned is that even though learning loss happens, in my class, I need to focus on the grade level work. And the reason that's so important, if you think about life in cells or cell structure and function in cells and how that works in life, and our students have learned certain things in lower primary. And then if I'm teaching upper primary, I'm expecting them to come in with those ideas. And then if I teach the middle grades, I'm expecting them to bring some ideas from life and cells up into those middle grades from the upper primary. And then in biology up in the high school, I'm expecting them to carry that through. Well, if I do a diagnostic or if I am looking at my students and I'm concerned about learning loss, and I'm in the middle grades and I see some of the topics they did at upper primary, they don't have the mastery of, the tendency is to focus on those ideas. And really what happens then is when they get into in biology or the upper grades, they're going to be missing the middle grade level work. So we need to make sure that we focus on that grade level work, even with remote times. So what does that mean? I've done a diagnostic, I have students missing some prior work. That's where we need to provide some resources to help them recapture that work. But I need to make sure in my class time, I'm focusing on the grade level work. And here's one of the key factors that we've had to deal with this year, the most important work. Now that thing, if I focus on the most important work, it actually will allow me to have some time to go back and deal with some of the learning loss that's occurred. Now there's a couple ways that you can focus on the major work of the grade level. One of the things that we've done in Inspire Science, especially at the primary grade levels, you're going to see what we call a flex track about how I teach the topics. So flex track, the full track is 45 minutes every day for a full year. Flex track A is 30 minutes a day every day. Flex track B is 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week. And really, they're still covering the same concepts, not at the same level, and we're identifying the teacher, what are the things that I might not cover if I have to adjust my time for reasons. So one way to do it is to adjust the pieces that I pull in and I use in working with my students. Just a caveat here, the tendency of a lot of science teachers, especially in the primary grades, if they have to save time, is to remove the hands-on experiences. Please don't do that. There are other things that you can remove about depth of coverage, but the students need that hands-on experience. That's part of science. The other way you can do it is in the US, and you might think about your standards across Europe or in the UK. One of the ways you can do it is by focusing on what we're calling the priority standards. Now, different individuals, different school districts in the US have looked at the standards, analyzed them, and then come up with what they feel are the most important standards in their grade level and topic. And here's how they identify them. So the first one is endurance. These are standards that provide students with knowledge that go beyond one assessment. Okay, so if you think about what we're doing in any branch of science, like Newton's laws, if I think about that, that's going to expand beyond a single test that I do in here. It's going to apply itself to other things I do in physics. So I need to think about that because that's going to go beyond one piece. However, if I think about the Krebs cycle in biology, identifying each major step in the Krebs cycle, I'm going to memorize that for that one assessment. I'm not necessarily going to use that after I get out of that content. I may think about how deep I go into that specific standard. Second one is leverage, standards that provide knowledge and skills that are valuable in all disciplines. And then the third one is readiness. And this one's really important. Standards or skills that are going to support them being ready for the next grade or level of instruction. So there are multiple examples. If you actually went on and put science and search priority standards on Google, you would come up with a whole variety of these for different grade levels, different topics and subjects. So these are just a couple. This was done by a specific district looking at energy and matter. They decided in the physical science standards to focus on these three specific ones as their primary. And notice this, matter is conserved because atoms are conserved in physical and chemical processes. Students should be able to construct a model of how matter is conserved, even when the kinetic energy of the particles changes. And this is just one of the focuses they're going to use. It's tied to one of the cross-cutting concepts from our NGSS standards, but you could do this in any standard grouping that you have by these three characteristics: endurance, leverage, and readiness. But it allows you then to focus on the grade level work and the most important grade level work. Number three, using the power of digital for teachers and students. Hopefully one of the lessons we've learned during this COVID time is digital has a very important part to play in all aspects of science. Now, the reason I say we've learned this, for McGraw Hill in our programs, we saw our usage of digital in the last year go up over 700% with current users because they had to discover the leveraging tools we had. We've learned how to use breakout rooms and all kinds of open educational resources to support us. One of the things that has become really important this year is the use of virtual labs and simulations. And by the way, one of the things we're going to talk about, should I do this synchronously, asynchronously, or independently? And we're going to touch on that in a minute. But these types of interactives allow students to experience science in a whole new way. So we have these built into our Inspire Science program, but you also have access to these in a variety of other places. The digital resources, like this is simply our Read Anywhere app with our downloadable ebook that students can have offline, has allowed students then to have access to their content in a variety of different ways, even without the internet and wherever they are. And you know, if you think about this, this is what I mean by one of the ways we're slow to change. You know, people have been using digital books for years, and yet we in education have tend to be slow to move that way. Here are some of the other things, though, that you can do with that digital that you should not lose because we go back to face-to-face. Modeling, collaboration, exploration, developing conceptual understanding of an idea, like with that simulation we saw a minute ago. Assessment and being able to pull that data immediately. Having students do idea generation around question development. And by the way, there's tools that I've used that I love that are great for this. Linoit is like a virtual sticky board note that they can throw questions on as a class. Padlet, some of you may have used, is another great place for students to put video or audio or links or ideas that they've created. But it's a great way to do that. Using digital to explain reasoning and strategies or to create arguments for evidence. Okay, be able to put that argument up there and other students to be able to respond to it and challenge it. A lot of great tools out there to be able to do that. Let's not stop using them simply because we're no longer in a totally remote setting. So one of the things I'd love for you to throw in the chat is, what is one of your favorite tools that you've discovered or been using during this time that you would say to others, this is a great one to use? So if you just want to throw that in the chat. And then really quickly, two last ones. Use the face-to-face time wisely. We use the 5E lesson model. And one of the things we did is actually for our teachers went through, looked at a specific part of a lesson, like the claim evidence reasoning prompt, and said, how would I use that if we were face-to-face? What would I do if we were synchronously online? And what would we suggest if you were asynchronous? So you need to think about each of these tools. And the reason I mention this one, if you're doing a virtual lab, have the students do it in groups ahead of time. Don't use your face-to-face time for that, and then come back and use the face time to discuss it and bring out the reasons. Let's use that face-to-face time for science talk. I agree, I can see that. I have a question about looking at my observations, I can see that. Another trial might show, I wonder why. I can conclude that. These are all great sentence starters for students to use to describe their work. So really thinking about the change in what do I want to do with that face-to-face time? And then finally, finding the balance of synchronous, asynchronous, and independent work. And here's what I mean by that. If you think about learning as a triangle, what are we going to do synchronously? That was that last point. What is the best use of our face-to-face time? Activating prior knowledge, getting with a small group and recovering an idea they need for the current doing, reteaching an idea, discussion, science talk. If I think about asynchronous work that ties directly to what we're doing in class, what's my before class lesson? Maybe doing a flipped classroom model where I record a little piece. The application afterwards can be done asynchronously. Modeling, like the simulation or the virtual lab, can be done asynchronously. But notice all of this ties directly to what we're doing in the classroom. And then finally, the independent work is filling the gaps and ongoing support. This is what technology is great at. This is not necessarily tied to what we're doing in the synchronous classroom, but is personalized for every student. At McGraw Hill, we have a number of tools that do this type of adaptive, personalized work. Two of these for science are Alex for chemistry and SmartBook that are built into many of our programs. And SmartBook, I just want to mention, is called that because it's an adaptive learning system. Students can go in, we pre-highlight some of the core material that they need to know as they're working through that. And by the way, this is exactly what it looks like. They can go to a series of probes, fill in the blank, select all that apply, that are looking at their understanding of the topics. And they also have to put in their confidence level on that topic. This actually then personalizes the instruction for that student using SmartBook in the future. This is an independent tool personalized for every student that you don't have to use. They can use independently that can help them recapture missing information, can help reinforce what they're doing, or allow them to move ahead on their own. So using that time wisely is a really important part. And it's a lesson we've learned from that. We need that for every student. Let's not learn it. So whether it's that face-to-face time and using it wisely, whether it's focusing on the grade level work, using the diagnostic assessment, using that great balance of synchronous, asynchronous, or independent, all of those things are important for us to make sure that we're using. So with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to Jason to actually look at our Inspire Science program and how that relates to some of the things that we've talked about just now.
Okay, thank you, DJ. Great information, and I'll try to tie in some of what you shared in the Inspire Science session, the product overview. So let's go ahead and begin. My name is Jason Marshall. I'm a National Science Consultant with McGraw Hill Education. And let me walk you through Inspire Science. And I'm going to walk you through K through 12. So I'll touch on a little bit of what you teach, whether it's K5, 6, 8, or 9, 12. We'll try to address a little bit of it all along the way. Inspire Science is a comprehensive, research-based K-12 science program completely built to support three-dimensional instruction and phenomena-based learning. And in this overview, I'm going to talk about how the program is structured. How does a lesson flow from beginning to end? What are some of the components of the program that may be useful to you for diagnostic, asynchronous, and synchronous instruction? And so let's begin. First with some housekeeping. With Inspire Science at grade K5, we have 4 interactive write-in student textbooks. What do I mean by a write-in student textbooks? I mean, students are actually writing in these. They're journaling in these. They're collecting their data in these. That's because their labs are in these. And we replace these every year for every student as long as you have Inspire Science in your classroom. No going to the copy room every single day. A lot of that student work that would have been done on paper is done in this interactive workbook. And we replace these every year for every student. That's true K5. It's also true 6 through 8. Inspire Science is very much by design a K through 8 science program. Now, when we get to the high school level, there are hardbound books. These aren't write-in textbooks. They're a little bit more familiar. Write-in textbooks are K through 8, hardbound books for the high school science titles. All of our programs exist both in print and digitally. So if you can't rely on technology regularly and you've relied on print because of necessity, Inspire Science has print. Students get a student edition, teachers get a teacher's edition. If you as a teacher have access to a computer, that's pretty much all you need. You could pull resources or project resources from your computer. But I know many of you are heading in a digital direction and fast. And boy, has this last year really forced us to head in a digital direction more quickly than anticipated. Well, Inspire Science will work for you as well. Inspire Science has a platform that has really been put to the test over this last 13 months, and I'm so excited to say it has met the call. it is ready for prime time. It's ready for any sort of remote, asynchronous, hybrid instruction that you have planned for your future. On what devices? I often get asked, well, on every device, PC, laptop, Chromebook, tablet, and even smartphone. So you could create a test on your desktop, send that test to students. They could take it on their smartphone, send it back to you for a score, and you can see how they did on your tablet or Chromebook, literally any device, anywhere, anytime for both teachers and students. And DJ mentioned this a little bit earlier. Inspire Science also has a Read Anywhere app. So students can download modules onto their smartphone. I don't know about you, but every student I see these days has a phone somewhere close by. So now they have their module for offline use. They can highlight, as you see here, make notes, annotations, and once they get to sync back up online, those changes will be reflected in their regular textbook online. What other experiences can students find on their device? Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. Lesson concept videos, virtual labs and simulations, in K through 5 STEM career kit videos, phenomena videos. Why are those goats up on that tree? What are they doing up there? Every module begins with a phenomena in Inspire Science, every lesson in K through 8 as well. And then a dynamic interactive ebook that brings all of these experiences together. And we're going to take a look at all of these along the way. There's even gamification in K through 5. Now, what is gamification? It's the idea of let's use games for instructional purposes. Students have their devices, they love games. Why not use them for our science goals? For instance, this one. Forces in motion is not an easy topic for our students. I taught middle school science. It wasn't easy for my middle school students. Why not introduce it at a much earlier age through the form of a pinball game, where students are getting introduced to the concepts of forces in motion, and they don't even realize it. That's because they're having fun. And that's the idea of gamification. Have students have fun, use their devices, engage in the ways that they're used to engaging, but learning science along the way. Gamification is a part of Inspire Science. And I know this is on many teachers' mind is, will Inspire Science work with the systems that we use on campus? And the answer is yes. We have a McGraw Hill integration team whose sole focus is the successful integration of what you're using with what you're using, with what Inspire Science provides. We're a Google for Education partner. And I'm excited to share that if you are a Canvas user, we now offer LTI Advantage. It is the ultimate, the highest level of integration with Canvas, which includes the grade pass back. And it'll never be easier than it is with LTI Advantage, integrating Inspire Science with Canvas. So let's walk through a module. And since this is a K-12 presentation, I won't have time to walk through a module for K-5, 6, 8, and 9-12. But what I will do is walk through a K through 8 module, and then I'll share some differences that are found in middle school and high school. And for this specific walkthrough, I'm going to choose grade 4. So let's walk through a module to get an idea of the feel for it. With Inspire Science, we integrate the 3 dimensions, the science and engineering practices, the disciplinary core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts in each and every lesson. So what does that look like in the student edition itself? Well, I'm at the beginning of a module, and every module begins with an anchoring phenomena. And so students are presented with a question: how does a lighthouse transmit a message across the distance? This module is called Information Processing and Transfer. It's all about how humans communicate, how animals communicate, and is it possible we all communicate in similar ways? So it says, how does a lighthouse transmit a message across the distance? And it says, go online to watch his video, Clicks and Echoes, to see this phenomenon in action. So if I go online, I'm going to an Inspire Science presentation. This is a tool found K through 12. Basically, think of it as kind of a PowerPoint on steroids. It has slides that are pre-created for you, but all of those engaging media pieces, those videos and interactives, they're already embedded within this presentation. So all you have to do is click. You don't have to import all these digital media pieces. So I have that first page of the module opener there on a slide. And then here's that video already embedded within the slide. So let's take a look at this one. So how does a lighthouse transmit a message? And let's take a look at this. Let's see what's going on here in the animal world. And I hear something, but I don't see something. Well, this particular phenomenon video I can manipulate. And I'm going to move down to see what's going on beneath. Oh, we have dolphins there. And they're clearly communicating. What are they saying to each other? If they have a language, does that mean they have an alphabet? If they have, do all dolphins speak the same language? By that I mean, does a dolphin in the Indian Ocean speak the same language as a dolphin in the Pacific Ocean? How do they perceive the language? Who taught them their language? Did their parents teach them their language? All these are questions students are going to have when they look at our phenomena. Phenomena are designed to spark student questions and a desire to figure things out over time. Every one of our modules will begin in this way. From there, we go into a STEM module project launch. Basically, it's an introduction into the STEM project that awaits them at the end of the module. But we want to introduce it at the beginning so it gives some context to everything that follows. Students know on the front end what they're going to be responsible for. So here in the launch, it says, you're going to be hired as a telecommunications engineer. It will be your job to design and build a device that sends a message across the class. And they're going to have to use either light or sound to transmit that message. Now they know the end goal, and it will give context to all of the lessons that follows. Every module begins with the STEM module project launch. So now we're ready to go into a lesson. As DJ said in the keynote, we use the 5E lesson model. It's a research-based approach that the NGSS writing team suggested three-dimensional learning classrooms use. We have one additional step in Inspire Science lessons. Before Engage, we have this Paige Keeley formative assessment probe. So who is Paige Keeley and what are these formative assessment probes? Well, Paige Keeley is a former president of NSTA. She's a wildly successful author. You may have seen her Uncovering Student Ideas series. And if you haven't seen these, you ought to get your hands on them. They're wonderful. And she's an exclusive partner with McGraw Hill Education. And these experiences that she calls probes, we begin every single lesson with one of them. She's written them for Inspire Science, like this one. Their probes are a scenario. Let's read one together. Two friends were talking about animal eyes. They noticed that animals that are active at night have very large eyes. And this is what they said. Laura said, animals like owls have large eyes so they can see in the dark. They do not need light to see. Jaden had a different idea. Jaden said animals like owls have large eyes to help them see in the dark, but they still need some light to see. Who do you agree with most and why? Now, the answers are going to be all over the place. And the answer necessarily isn't the most important part. And some of these probes will have 4 possible choices or even 5 or 6. But it's the explanation. It's in that explanation where you'll be able to uncover misconceptions, get students communicating, sharing their ideas with their classmates, and creating a desire to know. Now, to support you all along the way at Inspire Science programs, whether it's at this feature level or just at a program level, we have videos to help you do that. So here's one on this particular probe to help you set it up as a teacher. Watch it before you go into this probe to get an idea of what students might be thinking. Let's take a look.
We're going to talk about seeing things and how students see things, but I'm going to give you a warning right now. It's going to get dark because I'm going to turn off the lights. So what do students think about how you see things? Let's take a look.
I think your eyes see things because of parts in your body that help your eyes see things. If your eye sockets are good, then you can see them and you can your eyes can actually tell your brain what color it is. Your eyes are like a mirror. Like, sometimes I do this to my sister, like I'll look in her eyes to see something, and it's so I can see in her eyes, but it's not like on the white part of your eyes. It's not on it's like somewhere on the brown part, and sometimes on your black thing. I know what that's called, it just won't come to my mind, but it's you can see through that too.
One time I watched a video about eyes, and in the back of it there's like this little flashlight that lets you see everything, and I think that that's the little white thing that's in your eye that lets you see everything.
You can see in the video that students have different ideas about how they see things. A common idea is this idea of vision, where the eyes actually send stuff out to grab something and bring it back in some way. But the idea that is about the eyes. And really, it's about the light. So let me show you this diagram.
So you can see students have different ideas. And these videos help you support your students heading in the right direction. And videos, professional development support for teachers is a part of Inspire Science. It's all along the way. You'll see it at every level, whether that's kindergarten through 5th grade, 6th through 8, or 9 through 12. And here's the teacher's edition showing you what students are likely to choose and what are some of the misconceptions they may have going in that is informing that choice. But here's a strategy right here called the sticky note strategy. It's one of many that are part of Inspire Science. And we see that students are choosing who they agree with most at the beginning of the lesson. And we're going to revisit this towards the end. So about half and half, looks like they're fairly evenly split between Jaden and Laura. Let's see what that looks like at the end of the lesson after they've had a few more experiences. So now we're in a lesson. Beginning lesson begins with a 2-page spread, and here we encounter the investigative phenomena. How do eyes help animals see? It says go online and check out this video to see the phenomena in action. So we're going to watch that video. What is that cat looking at, and why are his eyes changing shape? Is something getting closer to the cat? Is something getting farther away? Is there more or less light coming into the room? Is it possible the cat's communicating to another cat using its eyes? Is that possible? What's going on there in this video? And again, good phenomena are designed to spark curiosity and an exploration, student-generated questions. From there, we're in the second E, explore. And explore in Inspire Science always means a hands-on lab or investigation. And so that's what you see here. And they're outlined in yellow just for ease of use, just so you can flip through the book and easily see where those labs or investigations are. With Inspire Science, there are collaboration kits. So everything teachers need and students need to accomplish any one of the labs, all of the labs in Inspire Science are provided in handy tubs, organized by unit, and then every module will have a bag with everything that you're unlikely to have in your classroom. Now, if you're a K-5 teacher especially, and you're not a science specialist, let's say you're a literacy or math specialist, lab day can be terrifying to you. Unless you have a video that helps you with the science content background, how to set up the lab, what students are likely to say, the questions they're going to ask, how does it look like, what does it look like on the table? What are the outcomes going to be? We have that video for every one of our labs. We call it the Inquiry Teacher Preview. So it's everything you need to feel 100% confident as a teacher going into every single lab. For the students, there's the Inquiry Rewind video. Let's say you have students that miss a lab day. What do? Do you recreate that experience after school just for 1 or 2 students? Probably not. And especially in remote learning situations, how do you have students doing lab? I'm sure you've all been challenged with this last year. You want them to be hands-on, but they don't have the materials to do some of the labs at home. Maybe the next best thing, in addition to virtual labs, is to have students see other students do the lab and see the outcomes and have the discussion. So we have these opportunities that are great for remote learning and independent learning situations. And as was shared by DJ in the earlier session, what about those labs that are too dangerous, too time consuming, too expensive to do in class? Well, you could do those virtually. And so in the middle school, in the elementary school grades, you may not be able to heat up iodine in your classroom. You just may not have the equipment or the classroom to be able to do it, to see the effect it has on the molecules. Looks like they're getting pretty agitated here. Looks like they're taking up more volume in a confined space as they get heated up. But these are experiences you can have remotely. As we continue through the lesson and we get into explain, there's always opportunities for online engagement. So at any time, students can pull out the device that they have nearby and go a little bit deeper and visualize it and see it taking place on their device through one of our media pieces. Elaborate. The next to the last E is always some sort of an extension outside of the classroom. In this case, to vocations that apply the science that you're teaching. And you've probably seen these avatars in this PowerPoint so far. These avatars are called career kids. And we put them in as a design feature to get students thinking and considering STEM careers at a much earlier age. Ruby is one of our STEM career kids, and she wants to be a veterinarian. And she'll share her passion and what she likes about veterinary medicine all along the way. Ruby is in print and video. Ruby has videos as well.
Do you know what this is? Yes, it's an X-ray. In fact, it's an X-ray of an iguana. I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. Then I will use technology like this to care for sick and injured animals. I want to work in a zoo. That way I can help all kinds of animals, even my favorite animal, penguins.
The career kids are just as cute as can be, and they'll get your students at K-5 really excited about science. When we get to the end of the lesson, we're going to revisit that probe. And look, as you can see on the orange sticky notes, their answers have changed quite a bit. They've come off of Laura quite a bit. Now they're starting to think Jaden is probably correct. This mirrors the way scientists think and scientists operate. Even scientists change their thinking as they get additional evidence and as they get additional information. We want students thinking like scientists and revisiting their thinking over time. Page-Keeley probes are an exclusive Inspire Science feature. And whether you're K5, 6, 8, or 9, 12, there's differentiation in Inspire Science all along the way for approaching level, on level, beyond level students. For those students in the process of acquiring English, emerging, expanding, and bridging standards, K5 has some ancillary resources like the leveled reader, science paired read alouds, and investigator articles. I love these. These are high interest magazine style articles connecting the science that you're teaching to engineering breakthroughs and cool science. Students like cool science, things like driverless cars and eye technology. Things that really fascinate students are part of these investigator articles. Now, when you get to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the lesson model is the same. Every lesson begins with the probe. Every module ends with a STEM project, but 6 through 8 has some additional features that I want to share with you. And same with 9 through 12. So let's talk about a few of these. Now, do you still have virtual labs and simulations? Absolutely. But you also see PhET integration 6 through 12. You know, many of you use PhET in your classroom. So look for PhET simulations assignable right from our platform, making them easier than ever to use. Phenomena videos, still a part of 6 through 12. But now we have in 6 through 12, that adaptive personalized learning tool called LearnSmart. Now, DJ hit upon this a little bit in his session. Now, what is LearnSmart? Just as a refresher, adaptive personalized learning. And when I use the word adaptive, I like to explain what I mean by that. Think of sites like Netflix or Amazon or any other dynamic, powerful site that you go to on the internet. I bet you get the feeling the more you go to them, the more they're getting to know you a little bit better, aren't they? Your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, and they're customizing an experience that's tailored to you. Well, that's what LearnSmart is doing, except it's getting to know what students know and what they don't know. And it's prescribing a pathway to mastery. As students read, they're going to be assessed continuously. They read a little bit more, they're being assessed. LearnSmart never gives them a chance to forget. And it prescribes them a pathway to mastery. Now, you're seeing it on the phone. LearnSmart is accessible on any device, anytime. So we see the benefit for the student, constant diagnostic assessments, prescribing a pathway to mastery. What about the teacher? Well, for the teacher side, you get data to see how students are doing, their most challenging objectives. We all can use more data to get a feel for what students know and what they don't know. It helps our instruction, and that's what LearnSmart provides as well. So successful has LearnSmart been in McGraw Hill's AP and college classrooms that we brought it down to high school and even middle school as well. And you can see from the infographic the difference in success rates with students on LearnSmart and students without LearnSmart. They absolutely love it. It's mobile. It's kind of a study buddy. It's a study coach. I remember Steve Jobs used to call an iPod 1,000 songs in your pocket. Well, LearnSmart is essentially a science coach in your pocket, and it's with students wherever they are at. LearnSmart is an Inspire Science McGraw Hill exclusive. And high school science has many of the same features that we've seen, except now those labs aren't in the write-in book, but they're available to you anywhere, anytime on a device, and they're in Word document form, so you can edit them. You might not like the way we wrote them 100%, hopefully you like most of it, but every teacher likes to make some modifications. All of ours are in Word. So launch labs are a hook to hang things on. Every module begins with one. Think of it as ABC, activity before content, getting students engaged in doing something before you ever get to the module. Quick investigations take 10, 15, 20 minutes long, giving you time to compare data between the tables, extend the lab, enrich it. It's a shorter experience. Design your own labs. Here, students don't have a procedure per se. We give them a plan. They have enough structure so they know what to do, but exactly how they get to the ending is up to them. It's a little bit more open-ended. And boy, are these fun. They're called Design Your Own Labs. We have the full period labs. They bring everything together. Applying practices supports a science and engineering practice. And with Inspire Science at high school, you also see forensics labs. Like, how do you find a patient zero and the great coin caper? These whodunit mysteries that involve science, and students love them. High school also includes STEMs projects. So why am I showing this image? And boy, this looked nice. Well, this is Cancun, Mexico. And I had a vacation to Cancun, Mexico planned in 2015. And I ended up going. And my friends would say, you got to go to Cancun, Jason. You're going to love it. The beaches are crystal clear. They're wonderful. You're going to spend all day on the beach. And I was looking forward to this image in Cancun, but that's not the Cancun I saw. When I went to Cancun, Mexico in 2015, it looked like this. Ugh. Sargassum bloom was everywhere. It was washing up on the beaches. It was impossible to get on top of. The hotel staff, bless their heart, did all the best they could. They tried to take it away, bury it, but by noon it was back, and it would get in your swim trunks, and it stank, and it was smelly. And as a science teacher, I kept asking myself, wow, where's this stuff come from? Why can't they control it? And then my mind started to wander, well, what can we use this for? Surely we can turn the lemons into lemonade here. Maybe there's a food solution to this. Maybe we could use it for food. Perhaps we could use it for fuel, maybe building materials. Well, these are ideas that science students should be thinking about. And high school, we happen to have a STEM project for that. All of our STEM projects in high school are aligned to the NGSS state standards. They're going to explore this topic. We're going to ask them to use the engineering design loop to come up, our process to come up with a creative solution to solve this real world problem. We want students solving real world problems. And that's what our STEM projects will do for those students. They're going to consider cost, environmental impact, the practicality of the solution. They're going to revise it, refine it, and eventually share their solution with the class. STEM projects are part of K through 12 Inspire Science. At high school specifically, you got a couple of ancillary pieces. I want to make mention of really fast. Reading Essentials. On the left-hand side, you see the student edition. On the right-hand side, you see the Reading Essentials. What are the differences? Well, the Reading Essentials, a little bit larger font size, more white space. It's a write-in version of the textbook. And the most powerful part is it's written 2 to 3 grade levels below the textbook. The second companion piece is the Reading Essentials. This is the Cornell system for notes. Main idea on the left, keep it very clean, just the main ideas, indent and put the supporting details. So you have these tools at the high school level. And I'm going to take one quick peek online because I want to share something that has been extremely successful for remote learning classrooms that are using Inspire Science. And that is the fact that we've broken down our lessons into assignable, manageable, digestible chunks of information. So if you look here, here's a lesson in biology. It's module 7, lesson 4, structures and organelles. And instead of in a remote situation, assigning students the entire lesson, that's too much. Give them a manageable, digestible chunk of information. It's manageable for students and by you. So any one of these is just a part of the lesson that I could choose to assign. So we broke it down in this lesson into over 6 pieces, that each of which I could assign. So let's take a look at one of those pieces to see what it looks like. Well, as I said before, students can use the book to access the content, but many of them might want to use this dynamic ebook. So let's take a look at it. This is page 1, and I've got some content here, some content found in the book, but now I've got embedded interactives that I can manipulate here. So the static student book isn't going to have this, but our dynamic ebook does. I could highlight this. I could have it read to me. I can make little notes when I highlight it, like a little note to self, a little animation here. I could bookmark this. These are all tools that students have. And as I go from page to page, look how it's not static. It's dynamic. This book comes alive. And at the end of many of these, not all of these, there's self-check practice. And there's even assessment that you can get a little score from students. So there's a little check that you can take for a grade. And any one of these has the same experience. And you can assign them as easy as clicking the assign button, putting a date, and sharing some details for this assignment. So this is just a sneak peek into our online platform. And everything that you've seen here and so much more is supported with professional development from Inspire Science. We do it on site on your campus. We also do a tremendous job online. So videos available to you on demand, anytime, anywhere. You can get a tip as to how to use Inspire Science properly. You can get a tip as to how to navigate the online platform and utilize that optimally. But you can also get best practices in science and how to reach all the students in your classroom. All of that is found on Inspire Science platform. So inspire curiosity, inspire investigation, inspire innovation. Inspire Science was designed to help students explore our phenomenal world. So I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand it back over for the closing.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. That was an amazing session with so much detail. It was really great to see Inspire Science through those videos and all that engaging content. And unfortunately, DJ had to leave the call. to attend something else. So, but a big thank you to DJ for his session on those 5 lessons earlier on. Just a thank you to all of you who have attended. It's been great to have you engage with us on this webinar. Stay connected with us. We've got our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter handles on the screen for you there. We're always posting content that is going to help you and support you in your teaching practice. So check us out on socials. If you've got any burning questions, there are 2 ways that you can contact us. So we've got your Emma Chambers. She is the account manager for UK and Europe. She is your first point of contact. Her email, phone number is there on the screen for you now. And also, if you have any other pressing queries, you can definitely drop us an email at ukschools@mheducation.com. We will pick up your question and we will support you in any way we can. You can also have a look at our website there, mheducation.co.uk/schools. There is an immense amount of content on there for Inspire Science and our other K-12 programs for you to take a look at. So thank you so much for joining and have a lovely evening.